Good evening. It's time for us with our midweek Bible. Everyone here with us tonight. If we would go ahead and grab your psalm books, if you'd like to mark the invitation song, that would be number 912. 912 will be our song of invitation. And we'll have two songs before our devotional this evening. Our first song will be number 15. Number 15. Let us sing. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways, and step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days, and I will follow you all of my days, and I will follow you all of my days, and step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days.
Number 96. 9-6. I stand in all of you. 9-6. You have it, Leslie.
How's everyone doing tonight? I'd like to thank the elders for the opportunity to speak. And I don't know about for you, but it's been a rough 2 weeks for us, for me, and with our family, and for me with work. And I've been really looking forward to this tonight, to speaking on some positive thoughts. I want to tell you about some things that I learned from Tommy Holly. I've thought a lot about Tommy lately, and I miss him. I've identified some traits that he had that I think we could work on. But as a reminder, I think that would be useful to us all. Every time that I saw Tommy, without fail, he always had a warm greeting, a kind word to say to everyone. and seems like he always had a smile on his face. Every time I saw him, he spoke to me, he hugged me, he shook my hand, and he made me feel seen, made me feel loved and encouraged. And Tommy excelled at the work that he did in the Lord's church. He was a teacher and an encourager, and he was always a very positive and well-natured person. I've never heard Tommy say an ugly word about anyone or to anyone. Tommy showed up for people when it mattered the most. For my family, on what was probably one of the hardest days of our lives, Tommy was there, and it mattered. It mattered a whole lot. He did the small things that often went unnoticed. And in retrospect, what he did were really the big things. Above all, he was kind to everyone. Tommy made you feel like somebody. He made you feel like he was glad to see you and glad that you came to church that day. He made you physically feel better, and it just makes your day brighter and makes you, in turn, want to do the same thing to help others. I want to look at 5 things that Tommy was great at that I know I could work on and maybe we all could learn from. First, I want to make it a point to speak to everyone, to every person that I can, whether they're a fellow Christian or a guest, and to help them if I can in any way. In Galatians 6:10, it says, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those in the household of faith." These past few weeks, as I've been serving as a greeter and helping to work the cameras, it has really, I've seen a lot of new faces, and it has taught me that I personally have a lot of work to do and easily I want to be more considerate of how we deal with people. We don't know what people are going through. There's a lot of suffering and struggling going on in people's lives. And if we don't take the time to ask, today might be just another Wednesday for you and me, but it might be the worst day for someone else's life. Maybe they're struggling, and it's time to see if we can help. Throughout the Bible, we are told to bear one another's burden. As I was growing up as the son of a Church of Christ preacher, we usually lived next to the church building, and there was always someone stopping by to visit. And I remember one day there was someone there who I'd recognized as the previous Sunday they had come forward, and they were having a serious discussion with my mom, and she kind of told me just to stay outside. And later on I learned that this person, after she had come forward, she had noticed that although there was a large response, that my mother had not come up and hugged her. It mattered to her, something that may seem small to someone else. It really mattered to her, and from a young age, that it made an impact on me to look at small things can affect other people. Let's not forget the small stuff. The simplest gesture, just being there for someone, a smile, a wave, an encouraging pat on the back, may make all the difference to someone in them remaining faithful. Persistence and patience. Tommy knew the Bible cover to cover. His favorite verse was 2 Timothy 2:15, "Study to show thyself approved." If you've ever been in any of his classes, you know that he didn't learn this overnight. He spent his life doing just that, studying and preparing. It's obvious from the number of people that he taught and had converted over the years. And last, Tommy Holly loved God, and he lived it. We didn't have to wonder about what Tommy believed. You saw it in how he conducted himself and in the way that he lived his life. I want to live my life so that the people see Jesus through me in the way that we saw Jesus through Tommy. So let's all have a friendly smile, speak a kind word to everybody here, whether it be to our Christian brothers or to our guests. And let's represent Christ to each other and to the world. So if there's anything here that the church can do for you tonight, please come forward as we stand and sing. Days are filled with sorrow and care, hearts are lonely and drear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Troubled soul, the Savior can see every heartache and tear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near.
You would be seated. You here tonight at the East Walker Church of Christ. We have a few announcements, reminders to make. First of all, if you would, Beverly's family, Beverly and her family, to in Mississippi, so if you would, as well as all of those who are on our sick list and prayer list. Are there any updates or additions to our prayer list?
Jesse, remember the family of Perry Baker? He's my sister's father-in-law. He passed away unexpectedly last night on his way home from a mission trip. Remember that family?
Perry Baker. Perry Baker. If you would keep that family in your prayers, I'll hate that.
Hey, Jesse,
Yes.
also, the family of Dale Strickland. Dale was at Heritage Place in Birmingham. He was also the director of the week at GNG this week. He passed away last night. Keep all of these individuals in our prayers.
Again,
Those
that are dealing with issues and overcoming things. Remember, the October 25th. There are also some flyers on the bulletin board for several other days in the area, so ladies would take a look at that. Our trunk or treat is going to be this Sunday night, Sunday evening, so keep that in mind. Plan that accordingly. Remember the East Walker Youth Group t-shirts, if you'd like one of those, sign up for that. Also, there's going to be a Halloween Evo for the teens, October 30th, as well as the sign up for Lab Surrenders at the end of that is October 26th, so that's coming up. Is there anything else we need to make mention of before we, yes ma'am?
Andy got a great report on his big earthquake, and thank everybody for their prayers.
That's good news to hear. So it is praying that can continue. Anything else before we dismiss the prayer? Loving and righteous and almighty Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight thankful for this place and this time to worship and praise you. We ask you to please be with those that we have mentioned, those that have lost loved ones, and those that are dealing with tragedy and difficulty in their life, that you would be with them and bless them. Help those families that are dealing with the pain and the grief of loss. We ask you to please be with all of the events that we are involved in with our congregation, that you would bless them and bless us, help us to be a light to this community, and help us to bring glory and honor to your name. We are so thankful again for Jesus, and it's in his name we pray. Amen. Take their places now. Good to see you, man. All right, we are continuing our study in the book of Joshua. Again, it is this conquering of the land of Joshua and his influence and leadership. On this, we've gotten through the entry, we've gotten through most of the conquest. We're down to the dividing of the land, and also, I guess we'll put the caveat, the dividing as well as some of the failures that they've had. Maybe that's a good way to phrase it. This is essentially, they have ended their conquest, or where we're starting, or what we're looking at, is the end of their conquest before they start to settle into the land. Now, we got to chapter 18 last week, and it was dealing with, there had been a gathering at Shiloh that Joshua had called them in. Essentially, not everybody had their inheritance yet. So the rest of the tribes were going to go and help them, and that chapter is they go and survey the land out, see what it is, divide it into portions, and then they essentially cast lots for Benjamin, and then Simon, Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, Dan. But I would like to take a moment and look at the end of chapter 19. That's kind of where we're going to start this morning. At the end of this, the thought is all of the tribes have gotten their section to take possession of, or their lot was cast, and that's where you get to go and live. But at the end of this, verse 49 of Joshua 19, it said, "And when they had finished distributing the several territories of the land as inheritance," so they're still at that gathering at Shiloh. These tribes have been given their portion. They've understood, okay, this is what God has given us. It says, "The people of Israel gave an inheritance among them to Joshua the son of Nun. By command of the Lord, they gave him the city that he asked, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, and he rebuilt it and settled it there." Now, this is just kind of a little side note in this account, but it shows us this thought of even Joshua was allowed to do what? God, I kind of want that area, that city. Can I have it? I find it neat to myself, or maybe encouraging, to think, here's all these little caveats in the Bible of, well, he asked for it and God let him have it. By command of the Lord, they gave it to him. How many times do you ask God for something in your life? God, help me get that car because mine keeps breaking down, or God, help me make the payments because, everything's getting tight. We understand those thoughts, right? So it's okay for us to ask. It's okay for us to make those prayers. But the thought is, here is Joshua, and what's he been doing his entire life? What's his whole focus and what's his whole mentality been on? What does God want me to do? Yes, sir.
Exactly to the class, but some things I have to remember when I ask the Lord for things is that He always answers. It's either yes, no, or wait. Mm-hmm. That's
right.
pretty clear.
These people, again, the thought was they're casting lots for it. They've essentially divided it up, and they're looking at the portion saying, okay, where does God want us to be? So for us, we might not know what we're going to get, but we know God's going to help us, right? Them, they haven't gotten their inheritance yet, but God is like, here it is. It's yours for the taking. They've already done some of this running around the conquest of it, this running out of the people. But the thought is now they have all of this. Verse 51. These are the inheritances that Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, head of the fathers of the house of the tribe of the people of Israel, distributed by lot at Shiloh before the Lord. So it almost seems to be that they're casting lots for even the individual portions in the bigger section. I'm not sure. This seems to indicate that as a possibility. So think of it this way. Here we are as a group of God's people, and for whatever happens, we have to go and find a new land to possess. And we all love each other, right? But there's that really good spot that all of us want. So what do? Instead of fighting over it, instead of, vying for, hey, vote for me so I can have it and then I'll give you this, they just cast lots. They say, okay, we'll just let God decide. And they are given and allotted the portions there. The end of this chapter says, so they finished dividing the land. The understanding isn't that they've finished conquering or that there's not still battles to be fought, but everybody's got kind of their section to deal with at this point. The other armies are still over there at this point, but look at verse 20, start in verse 20. Or not verse, chapter 20. He shifts from, okay, the allotment of the tribes, right? The physical land, the borders, to the Levites. We don't have them on here yet. They're not going to be given a huge chunk of land that we can carve off the map, right? Essentially what's done for them, I jumped ahead a passage, or chapter, my bad. We're on the cities of refuge, not the Levites. So hold that information to chapter 21, okay? We're on the cities of refuge. These are essentially, if you notice on the map, there's some stars there. If I can figure out, kind of 3 on each side. Man, that's hard to see. I'll have to make those, I'll make those things bigger next time. Wait, did I go forward? That's why you couldn't see them, because I went forward. The stars there, again, 3 on each side of the map, each side of the river. 3 had already been picked out by Moses or been told to Moses by God. Those would be the ones on the right hand of the Jordan. Here, they're told all the rest of them. But notice verse number 6. That's where I want to start with this one. We've kind of already discussed these cities of refuge. We know kind of their thoughts and impact. But verse 6, once the guy who's murdered someone accidentally gets there, he says, and he shall remain in that city until he has stood before the congregation for judgment, until the death of him who is a high priest at the time. So the image is, I accidentally cause somebody's death. Somebody's after me. I run to the city. I get refuge. They hear my case. It's told to me that, I did nothing wrong or it was an accident. Then I have this image of I can return home or until the death of him who is the high priest. Then the next part of the verse, then the manslayer may return to his own town and his own house, to the town which he fled. I kind of went back over that and read that some more, and it really jumped out to me. Because think about the image here. You've got somebody who unknowingly or they're not trying to make a problem and they cause a problem. And so they run to the place where refuge is. And then what's done there? Okay? Were you really trying to hurt somebody, or was it really just an accident? All right, if it's really an accident, then okay, wait. If not, you're going to get thrown out, and the Avenger of Blood is going to get his day. But if you stay there, you have to wait till what happens? Death of the high priest. Somebody's got to die, and then you're able to go home free or innocent of the burden of the guilt. And like I said, I kind of read over that a time or two, and it just really jumped out to me because look at our situation. We fall into sin, don't we? Do we need a city of refuge, a place to go, a place to run to escape the wages of sin? The avenger, the punishment? Absolutely. So we run to the city, we run to Christ, and then what happens when we get there? We're judged, right? I would think of that maybe as the life we spend. Our life, I'm showing the fruits, I'm being obedient, I'm serving, I'm not rebelling, I'm judged. But what still has to happen for me to be able to go home? Somebody still has to die. I see the imagery there with Christ, don't you? Or at least the kind of the setup. And maybe that's what God was doing, right? He was trying to build up in their mind this image of, yeah, even if something happens that's not your fault, you're still going to have to go there, and there's still a process you've got to go through. Now, the difference is we willfully sin, don't we? At one point, we give ourselves into it, but we can't get out of it ourselves. And there's where the image picks back up again. But verses 7 through 8, 9, through the end of the chapter here kind of cover where these places are. Like I said, right now they are right kind of smack dab in the middle, a little bit to the south, I guess. When you look at the positioning of these cities of refuge, the thing you notice is you're not far from one really wherever you go in this nation. You remember how when after Jericho they went and had after Ai and Bethel, they had the Gibeonites come down, and they claimed they were from so far away. The point I'm getting at is when they rushed over there, it took them about a night, a day and a half of hard travel to get from where they were camping to where the Gibeonites were. They did that in a day and a half, and they would get from about the Jordan River to about where the corner of Dan is. The point being, you're a day, 2, 3 at the most away from a place where you can get safety. If your life is threatened, how fast are you going to get there? You think you're going to sleep at night? Or you think you're going to maybe wake up early and take an extra few steps? That's the image here. God has given the entire nation, everybody there, the chance of, here's a place of safety. Yet I just thought it was important to point out the placement of these. Verse number 9 now. Another point I wanted to make on this. It says, these were the cities designated for all the people of Israel, but they were also designated for who? The strangers among them, right? So, somebody's traveling, maybe their cart runs off the road and one of my boys is out there playing and it runs over them and I see red, and what can this guy do? He has the same mercy that I have. And I think that's something important to notice. it's not just a law for the Israelites, but it's a law for everyone that's in God's nation or God's land at this point. Who needs salvation? Who needs Christ? Who needs God? All of us. Remember, while they were coming into the land of Egypt, they were surrounded by some travelers and sojourners, some people that said in Egypt, hey, we know God's real, we're going to follow you. Maybe some of the people like Rahab that weren't Jews, but they understood God. The thought is sometimes there might be some people there that you don't, that don't look like you, or maybe they don't have the same visual appearance. But you treat them just like you would treat your neighbor. I think that's very telling of God's law, isn't it? The mercy seems to extend to everyone, even though the judgment still got to take place. All right, let's move into chapter 21 now. I gave you all already the kind of run-up for that. This is the cities of the Levites. Now, like we said, the Levites have essentially no land at this point. They're still at Shechem or Shiloh. They're either at Shechem or Shiloh at this point. I'll remember a little bit later. But they're gathered there with Joshua. The other tribes have had their allotment given. These cities of refuge have been picked out. Now, notice how these Levites come before them. Verse 1 here. The heads of the house of the fathers, house of the Levites. So the ones in charge, the leaders of these tribes, came to Joshua. Then verse 2. Oh, here we go. Verse 2, Shiloh. They said to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, the Lord commanded through Moses that we should be given cities to dwell in along with their pastures for our livestock. Now, do you think Joseph forgot to give them their land? I doubt it. It's probably just the process of giving. All of the rest of the heads of those tribes back in 19 and 20 have been given those lands. Joshua stood up to those tribes and said, okay, here are the cities of refuge. All of you mark them. And then he maybe looks over to Levite, and the Levites say, okay, well, where's our land? Where's our city now? Or, what's going to be ours? So I think it's less of they forgot about the Levites and more of, again, just they're next in the series. All right, verses 4 through 7 then. Short snapshot of what the rest of the chapter covers. Now, this is essentially, you see those four groupings under the city of Levites. The Kohathites, they were split in two and then given some different positions, but essentially they are scattered evenly throughout the nation. If you look at verse 4, in Judah, Simeon and Benjamin, they have 13 cities. So that would be from this side of the river, but from about here down, there would be a fourth of them. Then you have in verse 5, the rest of them kind of get from the blue blob on this side and the red, another fourth of them. And then you get another fourth on the top half of that side of the Jordan, and then another fourth on the other side of the Jordan. If you look at verses, from there down to about verse 40, it gives a better description of where these are and where they are contained and why. The point of this chapter is the Levites, who were God's chosen bearers of his word, of his religion, of his will, of the tabernacle, they are mixed thoroughly into this nation. Now, here's my question to you. Why do you think they did that? Why do you think that was God's plan?
Try to keep them strong.
Okay. Why would mixing the Levites all around the nation, why would that keep them strong?
That's where they had to go to make their offerings.
They were supposed to go to the Levites for so much of this connection to God, right? If you get sick, you had a sore or a boil, right? What were you supposed to do? Go to the Levite, he'd check you, maybe you go through whatever the process was. And again, the image is they were needed to be able to tell the people, here's what God said for this, or here's what God expects of you, or hey, it's this time of year, you're supposed to bring this offering or take it to Jerusalem, or, well, not Jerusalem yet, but you're supposed to take it to the temple. Tabernacle, I'll get my words right eventually. Anyway, the point is, like you said, I think it's really easy to see God didn't want all of the religious minds gathered just in one place, right?
You should look at they had the wall, the top of the very top of the green, all the way down to the red bottom. How long would it take them to get there?
Several days, a week. I'm not really sure about the travel distance from that, but the thought is you're closer to a city where the Levites are than you are a city of refuge, right? They're there with you. What good is a preacher, a teacher, what good is a Bible if it sits on a shelf or in an office or just sits in our mind? What good is that? God's wanting to get his people out, again, his teachers out among the people. Skip down to the end of the chapter now. I want to look at verse 41 first of all, but we're going to probably read most of the rest of this. Verse 41, it says, the cities of the Levites in the midst of the possession of the people of Israel were 48 cities in all with their pasture land. I don't know why, but that pasture land jumped out to me. This would be essentially a strip or a border around the city, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 cubits wide. I guess it depends on which author or which historian you were looking at. Anyway, the thought is they don't just have the city, but they have enough land outside for everyone to graze, to pasture, to have, I guess, their own kind of gardens as well. The image is the Levites have what they need to live. Now, they don't have the big nations, they don't have the huge tracts of land, but do they need it? What are they going to be getting every year? What's going to be coming into them as the people of the land prosper?
Didn't they get a tenth also?
The image was they're supposed to give, sections and portions, and, this amount from this and this section of the cattle, or, give this many offerings a year, and so much is divided out amongst the thought is they have what they need, but also they're going to be receiving those offerings of blessing, those taxes, if you will, for the temple. They're going to be benefiting from that as well. Do you have a thought?
Earlier, when you mentioned they cast lots for that land, and I don't know, I'm not sure what the preference would be, but none of this land was bad. It flowed.
Exactly.
So there really wasn't no bad.
Right. Maybe it would be preference. You take that beautiful hill versus this beautiful seashore. I don't know. Maybe that's the image then. The thought is they didn't fuss and fight over, hey, my brother got something better than me. They were just over, let's make sure we all get what we need equally. Let's get what God has promised us.
Wherever these cities were, the suburbs, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
very compatible to do what they had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all of them given what they need to survive. All right, now verse 45. Here is kind of the capstone, if you will, or the end point of the conquest. They've been given the land, the cities of refuge have been set up, the Levites have been given their city portions. Now verse 43, and the Lord gave to Israel all the land that he swore to give to their fathers, and they took possession of it and they settled there. Now what does it mean when it says the Lord gave to Israel all the land that he swore?
45 said, not one word of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed. All came to pass.
Now you skipped ahead.
I'm sorry. You said 45.
I'm going there, but you get the point. That's exactly what happens. It's this hit. What did they get? Not one word that God said to them, not one promise that was given about the land, about their possessions, about them going in. It was all fulfilled. They got what God promised. Now, just for a second, I want to step out of this book and step into an issue that we sometimes face today. Any of you have to deal with the idea of the tribulation or premillennialists, the rapture, that mentality, that thought? The reasoning, or one of the reasonings behind that occurring, is they don't think Israel got all the land that they were supposed to. All right? Now, I can see that the process, or why they would think that. Go back to the last few chapters. You know, there were a few that they didn't choose to run out. Judges covers the reason, though, right, for that. We're getting there. But the thought is, God gave them everything. Now, again, still a few battles to fight. There's going to be problems they face. They eventually lose the land. But did God keep his promise? Did Israel, the nation, get all the land that they were promised?
Yes, and the only reason they lost it is because they disobeyed God.
They were given it, but they were also given some conditions, if you will, some stipulations. Not that God wasn't going to bless them, but just if you leave God, here's what's going to happen. And that's essentially, this thought is what the whole last part of this book is, the last few chapters. Here we have, the end of this is Joshua standing before this whole nation, about 10 to 14 years this would take from when they entered the land. But they stand there after this years of conquest, and he says, okay, finally, we're done. We have got it. God gave us all of it. God kept his promises. All right? So then that leads us into chapter 22. We've gotten everything. Now, remember the promise that, or not promise, the vow, the covenant that Joshua made the fighters of Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh make? If you get this land, on the other side, what do your fighting men have to do? You've got to go over and you've got to make sure that you don't just leave us out in the cold. So 10 to 14 years later, we have this thought or statement given. At that time, Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of Manasseh. Verse 3 then, you have not forsaken your brothers these many days down to this day, but you have been careful to keep the charge of the Lord your God. Now, listen to verse 4. Now the Lord your God has given rest to your brothers as he promised them. Therefore turn and go to your tents into the land where your possession lies. They fulfilled the promise. You can go on home. The image is they finished fighting. It's been a long battle. Now, they've probably prospered from this, right? A little bit later on, Joshua's going to talk about how God helped them fight and how nobody could stand against them, and about how they had gathered wealth and possession and herds and all these things. And the image is, okay, you've done all that. You've kept your end of the bargain. Now, go home with this. Now, look at verse 5. Here's his warning. I guess that's the thought. He says, only be careful to observe the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God and to walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments, to cling to him and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. Now, do these verses echo a lot of other passages in the Old Testament, in the New Testament? It's the same image, right? Okay, you guys, as you're going home, you've done your part, you've done your job, you fought the fight. Now, don't forget about God. And I think that's a reasonable statement, right? They're about to go over the land. They're going to be separated by the river. Just don't forget what God did for you. Now, skip down to verse number 7, the end of that. So, here's what Joshua says to them. Joshua sent them on their way, or to their homes, blessed them, and he said, go back to your tents with much wealth, with very much livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, iron, much clothes, and do what? All right, so say it again.
Divide it with your brothers.
Divide it with the people that you left back there. So remember when they crossed, they said, send your fighting men, but the others can go. They can settle the land, they can keep the cities. This is a guess that I have just based on this statement, this with your brothers back home, with the way militaries seem to work. There was probably some kind of rotation here where 10 to 14 years, you probably got to go home and see your kids or, whatever and come back, but I'm unsure about that, but it seems likely. But his image is to this army. Okay, when you go back home, what do you do with the spoils you've been given? Let everybody prosper. Let everybody gain and do well with this. So we go back to the thought we started with. You remember that? We said these are the ones, they've already got their possession. Their land is set. So they go over and they help the other ones. But then they come back and they've got blessings to give back to their own. The thought for us is, let's help others fight their own battles. Because when we get to come home after fighting other people's battles or helping them fight, it gives us blessings and strength. There are conversations that I have had with other Christians about battles they've had that I have never had to face. But it's helped me when I've maybe talked with my kids about something that they might face in the future. You get the imagery here. As we help others, our life is blessed and encouraged. But we've got to take the prospering, the blessing, the knowledge, the goods, and give it to others as well.
God always has things in the back of his mind that we don't understand. And he was doing this to make sure he was keeping a closeness to all of these people.
Oh, absolutely.
On one side, on the other. Then they say taking the wealth over there too, to them. But he was just making sure that you're always a family.
The warriors that left and fought, they're no different than the family that stayed back, right? They're the same tribe, they're the same family. Now, notice what happens, because what you're saying about the family, them being one, that's exactly the misunderstanding they have next. In chapter 22, if you look at verse 10, it says, they all came to the region of Jordan. Now, the they there is the 2.5 tribes on the other side. They're going home. They cross the Jordan. Let's see, where's the imaging there? End of verse 10 says they, half tribe of Manasseh, built an altar by Jordan, and an altar of imposing size. Now, the word altar, again, that might be a bad communication or translation. It means more of a monument type thing. Think of the same thing they built at Mount Ebal and Gerizim, where they built the monument and then wrote the law on it. The rocks that they brought and then set down after crossing Jordan, that's the thing they built. Yes, sir.
I don't think it said, did they build it on which side of the Jordan they built it on?
That's a great question. I am unsure of that. It says, it seems to be on their side, outside of Jordan. So
I'm thinking of it.
So-
That's why I'm thinking it's on the side that they about to cross over. And that's why the other
yes.
people got so mad.
Yes.
Because they built something that big.
Right. That's the image. They cross and then they build it on their side. So again, I don't know where, but they cross and it's on their side. But notice verse 12. Yeah, verse 12. When the people of Israel heard it, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to make war against them. So, like you said, they have this thought of, they did something over there that we don't think they should do. They gathered at Shiloh. This is where Joshua had gathered the tribes and nations before, the past 1 or 2. That's 1 or 2 chapters. Most likely, or more than likely, that's where the tabernacle is at this point too. So they gather there, and all the people are again looking at this great big old monument, this thing of imposing size, and they say, they must be rebelling against God. Again, altar, monument, that seems to be something of worship, something of offering, because notice what they do. Skip down to verse number 18. It says, once this group of ambassadors, I guess that's a good word to put, it was the high priest along with some of the other chiefs or representatives of the other tribes. They go there before them and say, if you rebel against the God today, then tomorrow he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel. But now, if the land you possess is unclean, pass over into the Lord's land where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take for yourselves a possession among us. Notice how they respond to this. Again, they're building a temple, or they're building something that would be seen as an object of worship or reverence, maybe a place to offer sacrifices. But they get there, and what do they ask the people? What are you doing? If the land is too difficult, you come back over with us. You find a place and you can have rest from what all they're doing to you, what all these evil people or these other gods of the land or the influence they're having on you. But you go back to verse 18. They go there and they're saying this, but the thought is, if we don't correct you, what's going to happen to us? If we let you be, if you sit in your sin, eventually God's going to look at us and say, why didn't we do anything? Now, if that isn't a knife stuck in our back turned, right? That's an imposing thought. They went to their brothers who they thought were sinning against God, who they thought essentially had rebelled against this law of Moses, this book of the law about only going to the tabernacle to worship, only offering the peace offerings, the tithing, those kind of things. And they said, you've messed up. Now, first of all, that takes a great courage and strength to do that, right? Approach an erring person and say, if you've messed up, I'll help you. From what it looks like, you've done wrong. But notice their response. Well, one other thing, they say, when you come back into our place, just make sure you don't build another temple or another item of worship. Verse 22, here's how they respond when accused of this. They say, the mighty one, God the Lord. Repeat it, the mighty one, God the Lord, he knows, and let Israel itself know. They stand there. Now, I don't know if this is said in anger, maybe an accusatory tone, or maybe he's just hurt by this. I think there's a lot of ways you could read how this response is given. Either way you look at it, he's saying, you ask God. We did nothing wrong. God knows and I know. Now, any of you ever been in that position? Somebody's accused you of something, maybe something you said or something you were thinking, and they accuse you of it, and you're like, I never thought that or said that. You know, maybe the phrasing, God is my witness. I don't like that, but the thought is, God knows I didn't do that. That's what they're saying. Now, pick it up from there. He knows, and let Israel itself know. If it was rebellion or a breach of faith against the Lord, don't spare us, or do not spare us today. For in building an altar to turn away from the following of the Lord, for if we so did, if we built this great big old imposing monument, if we built it to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings, may the Lord himself take vengeance on us. What are they saying? What are they telling this brother who came to reprimand them about them falling away from God?
They think they're building to bless God.
They respond with, if we did anything improper, if we did anything sinful, God, strike me down now. Again, have you ever been there or maybe had that thought? God, person. I promise you, I never intended any ill or harm. Again, God knows. But carry on real quick. Verse 24. Here, he gives the reason. He says, why? Here's why we did this. But we did it from fear. Now, not fear that we wouldn't worship him, but we did it from fear that in the time to come, your children might say to our children, what have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? Now, this is some foresight from these guys in my mind. They're crossing the river after years of fighting, probably not seeing home or their family for much, if at all. And they get back and they're standing there crossing the river, and their mind goes, we don't want them to forget about what we've done for them. We don't want them to forget about what we've done for God. So, in their mind, I can almost see the military type mindset, the guys getting around saying, okay, well, let's just build as big a monument as we can, right? Let's build something that we'll never forget. But there was the misunderstanding, right? They want to build it so that they will remember, or that the other side's kids won't forget, we came and helped you, that we're brothers. But the other side thought, well, they're building something to worship God or a God. We've got to reprimand them. Have y'all ever had a situation that turned out just to be a misunderstanding with a brother or sister, or I guess really anyone? And because of that misunderstanding, things blew up? Here is our kind of framing, our image of how do we deal when we have misunderstandings with brothers, right? Where is the rest of the nation? They're at Shiloh preparing to do what? Go to war. These men are there talking with this nation, the representatives of them, while the rest of them are back at the temple sharpening their swords. It's a misunderstanding. If that was us, God strike us dead. If that was our intent, then, God have his vengeance on us. Now, we did it out of fear so that y'all wouldn't forget. Now, very quickly, verse 26 and 27. He said, he's referencing himself. Here's what we said. Let us build an altar, not for burnt offerings, nor for sacrifice, but to be a witness between us and you, between our generations after us, that we do perform the service of the Lord in the presence of our burnt offering, sacrifice, peace offerings. He's saying we got together and we said, let's make this monument so we won't do exactly what you're accusing us of, right? Any of you ever been in that position? Maybe you're doing something, maybe your mindset is so that I won't fall. But somebody accuses you of what you're doing. I don't know if I explained that well, but again.
We have a responsibility to today. If you're mad at me for something I did, and I may not even know you're mad at me for what I did, I don't even know what I did. Mm-hmm. You start acting different, I'm like, how do you actually did?
And then it becomes, well, what did I do? How have I offended? Not, can I fix the situation? The thought that I glean from this is, instead of going to war with each other, maybe we prepare, but we have a conversation first. And I think that's exactly what's set up for us in the New Testament, isn't it? It's this idea of communication with each other. And I think it's neat that right here, after all of this conquest, all of this, we've gained, we've gotten from God, and almost the first thing that happens is this mistake that could have cost them. Because what if, Phineas and them, what if they just decided to run on down there and fight them? And again, I don't think God would let that happen, because clearly their mindset was, we're not doing anything wrong. But for us, sometimes we can be trying our best, and some people take it the wrong way. So what do? We plead our case. I wasn't meaning anything by that, or, again, whatever we need to do to show them, here's what my mind was. All right, we'll look at the last two chapters of this book next week, as well as we might move on into Judges, but appreciate your time and attention.